All right, let's just get this out of the way. Most of the growth advice you see for X, it's just wrong. It's all about gaming the algorithm, automating DMs, and all that stuff that, let's be real, just leaves you with a dead account. So today, we're going to cut right through all that noise. I'm going to walk you through a system that's actually proven to work. A relationship-first system for building a real engaged audience, the kind that actually matters.
Okay, so let's really frame the core problem here. Check this out. On one side, you've got the illusion, right? 10,000 random followers. It looks impressive, but it's mostly just noise. Then on the other side, you've got the reality, what actually moves the needle. And that's maybe just 100 real relationships. See, that isn't just a following, that's leverage.
And this right here, this gets to the absolute heart of it. You know those elite creators, the ones who are getting all the podcast invites, the client inquiries, the cool collaboration deals? They are not chasing follower numbers. They're optimizing for relationship depth. Why? Because they get it. They understand that an engaged community is what actually builds a business.
So here's the game plan for this explainer. First, we'll look at the old way versus the new way. Then, we'll dive into the three-phase system. That's discovery, relationships, and community. After that, we'll tackle some of the big questions you probably have, and we'll wrap it all up with a 30-day action plan you can literally start today. Sound good? Let's go.
All right, the old way versus the new way. Before we get into the how, we've got to talk about the why. It is so crucial to understand these two totally different growth strategies because honestly, choosing the right one, well, it's everything.
So, that old way, the whole growth hack method, man, it comes at a super steep price. You risk getting shadow banned, your engagement totally tanks because nobody actually cares, you build exactly zero trust, and worst of all, you become that guy. You know, the one everyone in your niche just mutes. It's a short-term game for sure, but with some seriously bad long-term consequences.
But then, there's this. This is the result of doing it the right way, the relationship-first way. And look, this isn't just some theory I cooked up. This system right here built a super engaged audience of over 8,200 people. And get this, no bots, no automation, no annoying growth hacks, just real, authentic, consistent engagement that builds real value and, more importantly, real connections.
All right, let's get tactical. Phase 1 is discovery. It's all about finding your people with something I call the comment mining strategy. Because, you can't build relationships if you have no idea where to find the right people to begin with.
Okay, so here's how the comment mining strategy works. It's simple, but that definitely doesn't mean it's easy. First, you identify like 5 to 10 big accounts in your niche. The places where your people are already hanging out. Then, you turn on their post notifications the second they post, you jump in. But not with some lame, great post comment. No way. You add real insight, something that actually pushes the conversation forward. Then you start engaging with the other valuable commenters. The folks who engage back, boom, those are your people. That's your starting point. You add them to a private prospects list. And here's the most important part, the real key. Your comments need to be better than most people's posts. Seriously. By the way, if this approach is already making way more sense to you than all those cheap growth hacks, do me a favor and smash that like button and subscribe. We've got a lot more Tactical X content just like this coming your way.
Okay, so we've found our people. Now we're in phase 2, relationships. And look, finding people and getting a follow, that's just the start. That's actually the easy part. This phase, this is where the real work and, honestly, the real reward is. This is how we turn a list of followers into a true, genuine community.
So let's talk DMs, because there are two ways this can go. On the left, you've got the bad DM. Hey, love your content, would love to connect. Ugh. It just screams automation, right? It's totally generic, zero effort. But on the right, that's the good stuff. A thoughtful, specific message that proves you actually paid attention. One of these gets ignored 99% of the time. The other one, that's what starts a real conversation.
And the difference in impact is, well, it's massive. We're not talking about a tiny little improvement here. Look at these numbers. That generic template-style DM, you're lucky if you get a 5% response rate. But a personalized, specific, genuine DM, you're looking at a response rate of 60%, maybe even higher. It's because you're showing respect for their time and their intelligence. And trust me, people really respond to that.
So you're probably wondering, how do I manage all this without my brain exploding? Great question. You use one of X's most powerful and honestly, most underutilized features, private lists. It's super simple. You create 2 lists. First, a prospects list for all those people you're building rapport with in the comments. Then, once you've established a real two-way conversation, you graduate them to your community list. That's it. That's your system for nurturing these relationships without going crazy.
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. Phase 3, community. Once you've built up this core group of, say, 50 to 100 real relationships, everything changes. The whole content game just flips on its head. You're not guessing what to post anymore. You're not just shouting into the void and hoping someone hears you.
Instead, you create what I call the engagement flywheel. It's this awesome, powerful, self-reinforcing cycle. Check it out. Your better relationships lead to better content. That better content gets more engagement. All that engagement attracts more of the right kind of people, which leads to, you guessed it, more great relationships. The whole system just starts to fuel itself. It's amazing.
So the biggest takeaway here is that you just stop guessing. That's the magic. Your best content ideas are already there, just waiting for you inside your community. They're in the questions people are asking you in DMs. They're in the patterns you notice on your lists. They're in the debates you're having in the comments. Your content becomes pre-validated because you're literally just answering the call from your community. Okay, I know what some of you are probably thinking right now. This sounds great in theory, but, right? There are always some hurdles. So let's just get ahead of it and tackle the two biggest questions, the most common objections that always come up with this kind of high-touch approach.
And here's number one, always. Isn't this system just way too time-consuming? And that's a totally fair question. We're all busy. The idea of manually engaging with dozens of people every single day can sound pretty daunting. Is it really practical?
Well, here's the reality. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes a day, but here's the thing, that's focused time. Let's be honest, for a lot of us, that's less time than we're already spending just mindlessly scrolling the feed with zero strategy. This is all about redirecting that time into a really high-leverage activity that builds a genuine asset for you.
All right, the second big concern is about authenticity. People worry, what if people think I'm being fake? You know, when you're being this strategic, does it feel a little manipulative? How do you do all this without feeling like a fraud?
This is such a critical point. Authenticity is the core of this system. The whole thing falls apart if you're not genuine. It only works because it's based on real, specific appreciation for what someone else is putting out there. You're not using a template. You're pointing to a specific thing they said and explaining why it hit home for you. That is the literal opposite of being fake. Okay, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now. What is your single biggest X-Growth challenge? Seriously, I read every single comment. And while you're at it, turn on notifications because tomorrow's recap is going to show you exactly how to pull all of this together.
All right, so we've covered the why and the how. Now let's make this super real. Here is your concrete, week-by-week action plan to turn this whole system into something you can actually achieve in the next 30 days. And we're going to do this in a way that builds momentum without being overwhelming. So, week 1, you focus on one thing and one thing only, comment mining. Just master that. Then, in week 2, you start to layer in the relationship building, sending out those first personalized DMs. By week 3, you're balancing everything and starting to create content from your conversations. And week 4 is all about refining the system, seeing what works, and doubling down.
So what can you expect after a month of this? Here's what's totally possible. We're talking 200 to 500 new followers, the kind who actually engage. 20 to 30 real relationships started through good conversations. And best of all, a clear content strategy that's driven by your community, not by guesswork. Pretty cool, right?
So, I'm going to leave you with this one final thought. As you go forward on X, I want you to constantly ask yourself this question. Are you just building an audience, or are you building a community? Are you collecting followers, or are you investing your time to create real connections? Because honestly, your answer to that question is going to determine everything.